The sitting plan changed after every 2 weeks. For every 2 weeks, students had to sit with a person decided by the class president. It was always on a shuffle. You would be lucky to get a chance to sit with your friend, and if you did, the chances for it to happen again anytime soon felt null. Today, the sitting shuffled all over again. On the board was written the sitting plan for the next 2 weeks. Vine entered the class clutching her notebook. Her long hair reached her waist, and her long eyelashes were always the talk of the town. She was beautiful, yet she was not loved. She looked at her roll number on the board and found her seat all the way back against the window. She didn't know the roll number of the person who was against to sit beside her. She was not curious either. They were all used to it by this point. As long as she could avoid that one person, it was going to be alright. It was a toxic society she lived in. She looked around her and found everyone laughing and chatting. She was usually alone, and sometimes it was painful. She wanted to have friends. She wanted to have a man. She wanted to be loved. You're going to burn a hole in me that way. The voice snapped her out. That's only when she realized she was staring at someone completely zoned out. Fine, I'm sorry, she said. All flustered, which turned into a shock. The one person she wanted to avoid. Why was he here? That's my seat. Shift to your left, he said. One laughed internally, out of disbelief, and shifted to her left, giving him his seat. So that was his roll number, Jungkook, the boy known to be the school's bad boy. He had been involved in some fighting. He was blunt and straightforward, but he was handsome, enough to have all the attention of every girl passing by him. World was unfair. Someone bad like him could receive the love, but she couldn't. Like it was mentioned, it was a toxic society filled with toxic beauty standards. She was beautiful, but 3 months ago, she ended up in an accident. The right side of her neck got burned with boiling water. It didn't look as scary as people made it to be, calling her scary and even a monster instead of asking if she was alright. Everyone grew distance, and eventually she was left all alone. Jungkook didn't seem to be bothered by it. He took a seat beside her and pulled up his hood, crossing his arms. Wine, is that even allowed? She asked, earning a questioned look from him. Wine, that hoodie, I mean. He didn't reply, and she realized why he had such a negative reputation. Huffing, she took out her notebook and started to do her math problems. The teacher entered the class, started. He was not pointed at, but she knew. She would have been thrown out for breaking the discipline. The teacher only looked at him with dreamy eyes. Wine sighed. The pretty privilege was too high here. He always gets away with everything. I mean, I would have let him go too. He's too charming to scold. She heard whispers. Wine, pretty famous, aren't you? Jungkook, does that bother you? Wine, yes. I'll have to put up with this for the rest of the 2 weeks. Jungkook, he'll get used to them. He rested his head over the table and closed his eyes. For a moment, even Vine couldn't deny just how handsome he truly was. She felt her cheeks turning pink, and she almost had to slap herself for get back to earth. She tried to focus on the lecture, but her eyes would shift to him again and again. Such a pretty distraction he was. As she waved her hand in front of him to make sure he was really sleeping, his lip piercing caught her attention. How would it be to kiss him and play with his piercing in between? She thought to herself and widened her eyes in realization. Why was she even thinking about that? When some time passed by and he kept distracting her, she softly touched his piercing with her fingertip. It felt oddly nice. As she slid her finger over it and Stan started to play with it, completely forgetting about the whole world around her. It felt nice. When the class ended and everyone started to leave, she picked up her bag as well. But then he grabbed her wrist, opening his eyes, then landed directly onto her, staring into her soul. Jungkook, where do you think you're going after touching me without my permission? Her eyes widened up. Was he not sleeping? She wanted to jump out of the window. Fine, I, I'm sorry. There was no use of excuses after all. Jungkook, are you really sorry? He straightened up and leaned near her, making her widen eyes. Fine, yes, I'm sorry. Jungkook, and did you think I was going to forgive you just like that? Fine, then what will it take you to forgive me? Jungkook, if you want forgiveness, meet me in the art classroom during break, he said, stood up and left with his friends. Art classroom. Was it not closed since last year? No one went up on that fourth floor anymore. Too many possibilities ran in her mind, and more than half of them made her blush. She bumped into a girl, and her books dropped from her hands. Nia, hey, watch where you're going. Fine. I'm sorry, she said, and instantly picked her up book and extended it. Fine. Here, your book. I'm sorry again. Nina, Don't touch it with your dirty hands. She glared and that polite and guilty look on Vine's face disappeared. She simply dropped the book again. Vine, fine. Pick it up yourself then. Nina fumed in anger while Vine walked past her. She was used to it. At first, it bothered her a lot, but now she was not going to let anyone treat her like a pushover. Somewhere deep inside of her, it still hurt her. She wished she had a company, some friends. But word was cruel. Only for a burn mark, she lost everyone. Sometimes she wondered if someone was ever even going to love her. Was she going to be alone for the rest of her life? As the break came, she went to the fourth floor. It was silent. Something about it was creepy. She swore if he was planning a prank, she was going to kill him. Making her way towards the art classroom, she went inside. She was early, so she jumped over the table, finding no chair around, and decided to wait. It was not even 2 minutes when the door creaked open and Jungkook entered. He was looking charming as ever as he stood inside walking up to Wine. He didn't look like he had any evil intentions. Wine, why here? Jungkook, it's private, don't you think? She looked at him confused and he smirked. Jungkook, now, you want your forgiveness. How about you kiss me in return of touching me? She choked out with wide eyes, then started laughing. Wine, you're funny, aren't you? You're joking. Jungkook, why would you think I'm joking? Wine, you're clearly joking. Above everything, why would someone even want to kiss me? He stayed quiet, and so Wine's laughter died down as well. He looked serious. Her heart started beating crazily. This idiot was going to jump out of her rib cage. Jungkook, why would someone not want to kiss a pretty lady? He stepped closer, getting between Wine's legs, taking her breath away. Pretty. Her. Was she not an ugly monster? Jungkook, or are you afraid you don't have an experience? He smirked. She takes it back. He was truly an evil jerk. Fine. Excuse me? Don't go around looking so proud. Of course I have experience. You might end up looking like a noob. Jungkook, wanna proof? He placed his hands on the table on each side of her and smirked. Wine was offended. She gripped his shirt and pulled him down to her level. He was close. Her heart was doing backflips. Such a talented organ. He held her hands and wrapped them around his neck instead, getting even more closer to her. That's right there was her death, ladies and gentlemen. Jungkook, you're pretty Hawaiian. I would kiss you for the rest of my life. That's what he said before he kissed her, officially killing her at that spot. His lips were soft. His touch was warm. He was the first person to call her pretty, with her ugly mark. He was the first person to accept her with his scars. She felt it, how it would be like to kiss him with his piercing. She wanted to play with her, lick it, and tug on it. Lest she couldn't do it yet. When they pulled back, she could feel his hot breath fanning her face. It felt good. Though he was a stranger, it felt so good, like they were meant to be. Jungkook, go out with me. Why? Because I'm pretty? Jungkook, yeah. He breathed out and then met eyes with hers. Jungkook, because you're pretty brave and lovable. It drives me crazy. Was she emotional? Damn it, she didn't want to cry there. Jungkook's hands were big and warm as they placed themselves on her cheeks. She couldn't think about anything else but this man. Jungkook, go out with me. He asked again, curling her toes. She nodded. He looked too sincere. Maybe he was not that much of a jerk like his reputation said. He was sweet, and the way he looked at her took her to the moon and back. Once the break ended, Wine and Jungkook returned to the class. Nina was waiting for her. She marched over to Wine and threw Wine's book at her feet, which she took from her desk. Nina, pick it up. Wine, what are you doing? Nina, you really had the guts to mess with me. Did you burn your neck on your eyes? It was Wine's book. Even if it hurt her pride, she had to pick it up. But before she could do that, Jungkook stepped forward and picked up the book, dusting it off. Now, there it was, the attention of the whole class. Everyone was truly attracted towards him, including Nina. Nina, why are you dirtying your hands? Jungkook, that's not your book. Who said you could get it without permission? Nina, that she was cut off. Jungkook, stay away from my girlfriend, for your own sake. I don't really care you're a girl. I won't spare anyone. The gasps were too loud at the confession. Jungkook held Wine's hand and the two walked over to their seats and sat down. Nina was embarrassed, turning all red and the whole class went in chaos, and it was obvious. Within 3 minutes, the whole school would break out in the chaos as well. Wine, seems like I will really have to get used to it. He chuckled and poked her nose. Soft. He was soft with her. Jungkook, do you want me to go shut them up? Wine, jeez, no. Stay here. She didn't know much about him, but she believed him. If she said yes, he would have truly went ahead and did that. It was written all over his face. that he would have fight the whole world if she asked him to. One wondered, how did she get so lucky? From having no one to having the most precious person. God truly has his plans always.